know setters who were making 15, 20K per month, which is crazy money, right? 15, $20,000. But then I also had conversation and Dushan as well. We're networking with people who made 40, 50,000 as closers on different offers. So like really, it's a crazy world where it's almost there's no limits, right? Some companies actually want newbies without experience because they train you. Sometimes it's harder to change your old ways of selling. It becomes who you are. It almost comes out automatically. I've been there because you're so used to it. So some companies, they don't like that. They like a clean slate, so they train you on their ways. If this is you, please give up right now, because sometimes people don't even enjoy sales, but they're here just because they heard there's a lot of money to be made. So you'll never be a good enough salesperson. You're always going to have the sale at the back of your mind. And people on the other side of your Zoom call or whatever, Google Meet, they feel that energy. So if you're here just to make money, get out of this.
Welcome back to the SDR Hire podcast. Today, again, we'll be talking about remote sales, high ticket closing. I'm really getting fond of this concept, and I got a chance to dive deep into this topic with an amazing closer that I recently got a chance to meet. So I'd like to introduce to you guys Jelena Bogdanovic. Jelena is a remote high ticket closer on top of having her own digital marketing agency. Jelena has been a part of this high ticket closing world for the last 5-6 years, working successfully on multiple offers. And so Jelena, without further ado, welcome. I'm stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. No problem. Lately, I've been increasingly interested in this topic, as I had Joel Elster a few episodes ago on the podcast. Jovan, one of the members from my community, he recommended you as a real asset when it comes to high ticket closing. Let's just dive right in. So can you remind me and the audience listening, what is high ticket closing?
There's a lot of different information out there. So I guess it's always good to do like a recap of what's actually high ticket closing. High ticket closing basically means that you work with a company. So you're like an independent contractor and you are taking sales calls and you enroll people in different programs. Now, the reason why it's called high ticket, it's because it's more than $1,000, for example, or euros, whatever you want to currency use. So it's a higher ticket product or service you're selling, you're enrolling people, and basically you're an independent contractor helping close deals.
All right, I like it. And so we're going to go into the details of the roles themselves and what the process actually looks like. But how did you end up falling into this world of high ticket closing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short story is that I was never looking to start with sales. To be honest, we were in Ireland, my husband and myself, Dushan, he's also in sales. We were just looking for some kind of mentorship around goal setting. I was doing my fitness classes at the time, so I felt like I was lacking direction. And we basically found this incredible mentor. We invested into his high ticket coaching program. And slowly we started sharing our feedback on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we started generating referrals unintentionally. People were reaching out, asking us about the program, and we just share information, have a chat, and actually they would pay to join the same program. So it was about, I think, 4 months into the program with Declan O'Donoghue from Ireland. He actually invited us to become part of his sales team. He never had a sales team before. We never did sales, but it was just a good energy. We believed in the product. And he was willing to invest a lot of time and money into training us. So we just started, both of us.
Real quick, if you're a sales leader or you know someone who's looking for support when it comes to cold outreach, cold calling, cold email, LinkedIn outreach, we build SDR and BDR teams for companies or complement their existing teams with top talent, remote SDRs and BDRs that are exceptional in outreach skills. So if you'd like to get in touch, just visit sdrhire.com and book a call with our team. All right, back to the show. That's pretty cool that you had a chance to live in Ireland. How did you end up there? Were you born there or?
No, I'm actually originally from Serbia. Right now, I live in Croatia with my family, but my husband is from Croatia originally. So when we met, to be honest, I never saw myself staying in Serbia. I don't know why. So I got my bachelor's degree. I studied languages in Novi Sad, and we met. I was on my last year, and We were dating. It's like that long distance. It's only 2 hours away, but still. And it was a funny situation. One day I got a call from police officer. He was like an inspector or something. And they were like, "Oh, who are you? Why are you coming so often?" And they're like, "You have 30 more days to spend in Croatia and then you cannot visit each other anymore." So we just decided to get married. Yeah, it's a crazy story, but it was the best decision ever. After that, we were like, okay, we don't see each other staying here in Croatia either. Dushan's parents are into kind of agriculture. They have a farm pig and whatnot, but he never did that. He's a professional basketball player. So we were just looking at other options. At that time, I actually just got my green card. So my initial plan was to move to New York, where my uncle is, and stay there. However, I did not plan to meet Dushan. So we sat down and see, okay, what's the best option for us? He has some family in Ireland, and it was much more logistically easier for us to move to Ireland compared to the States. So we went there and we were there for about 5.5 years. Our daughter was born there, Maria. And yeah, it was an incredible journey ever since.
Beautiful. To an extent, you guys fell into this world of high ticket closing sales in general. And what I want to ask is, from your perspective, Declan, who initially hired you guys, or any other company that hires high ticket closers for that matter, what is the full benefit that the company gets by using this kind of sales? Because there are multiple other ways of doing sales and getting leads and closing them, and incentivizing salespeople to close deals. And so, what are the types of companies that usually opt for this remote commission-based high ticket closing way of doing sales?
Yeah, so the greatest benefit I see for them is that we're fully commission based. They don't pay us anything unless we sell. Commission wise, it really depends. It's industry standard to have 10% for a closer. Sometimes it's 12. I worked on offers where it was 15, 20. There's like a variety of options that, like, sometimes you're like a hybrid closer. You set your own deals. You do like a triage calls and then you book them into your own calendar. Of course, then you have much, much bigger commission. Sometimes it's purely closing where they find leads and they book them into your calendar. From the financial point of view, that's the biggest incentive I can have. I have to make money. I have to sell on those calls.
So what you're saying is the company does not necessarily have to pay anything up front in order to close deals. They don't even necessarily have to find deals, but ideally the company just performs lead gen in whatever shape or form, gets those leads on an appointment setter's calendar, and then the appointment setter triages the call, qualifies, and then sends it over to a closer, which is you, for example, in this case. And then the closer closes. And once the deal is closed, then both the setter and the closer get paid a percentage of the sale.
Correct. So I have nothing to do with lead generation at all, unless it's an offer that I really love and I just talk about it on socials. And that way I can generate referrals, which is always an option. But basically, I have nothing to do with lead gen. I just show up, I take the call. It's usually a 1 hour call. Sometimes it's a 2 call close where there's like the first part, you educate them, you have the discovery part, you get to the pain point, what's working, what not. And then you book them for the second call where they have a little bit of homework in between to watch some videos possibly. And on the second call, you enroll them. But most of my career, actually, I've been doing 1 call closes because the idea is for them to see a webinar, like a VSL or some kind of a resource to get a better understanding of the company. And that kind of primes them for the sale when they come to the call and they show up for the call with me.
And the closer gets anywhere between 10 and 15, sometimes 20% of the sale. How much does the setter get?
Yeah, so the industry standard is 5% as far as I know. I don't know a lot about setting, but what I've heard, and I also did setting one part of my career, but it's usually 5%. However, sometimes it's only 1 or 2 if it's a really high ticket program of like 15K plus. The difference is, of course, setters in most cases have their base pay, which is usually 1K or sometimes even 1.5K per month. On top of that, they get a commission. If I make a sale, they get anything from 1 to 5% commission on the sale.
I see. Okay, gotcha. So it's either fully commissioned, about 5%, but then they often have a salary or a base compensation that is like guaranteed, which amounts to like 1K, 1.5K, depending on the company and what they can muster. And then obviously the closer is the one that is generating those commissions when they close the deal. Okay, got it. And since we're on the topic of money, I think that's the most important topic that we can talk about. How much can a setter, or maybe better yet, closer, make doing this kind of sales?
Whoa, that's a great question. And there's so many different answers because it really depends on the offer you're on. I know setters who were making 15, 20K per month, which is crazy money, right? 15, $20,000.
Yeah.
But then I also had conversation and Dushan as well. We're networking with people who made 40, 50,000 as closers on different offers. So like really, it's a crazy world where it's almost there's no limits, right? It depends what you're selling. Again, there's a huge difference. For example, with if you're selling a 45 plus K program, the sales cycle is usually longer. So you cannot do a one call close with them. It might take them 2 weeks to get the funding, get other business partners on board or whatever that might be. So the sales cycle is longer, but the money you make is really good. It's a little bit of patience and not being too hungry to close the sale in one call. So yeah, it really varies. But then again, I would say the industry standard, something that's what can you actually expect, realistic expectation for setters would be around 3 to 5K. And then for closers, 5K plus if you're on a decent offer.
Even if we take these like standards, what you can make, it's still significantly more than what you can make more or less anywhere, unless we're talking senior positions in the US, for example, or in the Western markets, where the salaries are bigger, especially coming from these regions, for example, like in the Balkans or other places like the Balkans. Making 3 to 5K a month is just not something you can expect from any other job. Now, you mentioned it is a contractor-based type of role. So what does that mean for the audience to understand? Am I employed by the company that I'm working with, or am I more like an entrepreneur or like a sole proprietor?
Yeah, so again, it's possible to be both, but since we're not in the States, as far as I know, we cannot be legally employed by them because of all the tech stuff and all the paperwork. So what this means that you're independent. So in our case, Dushan and myself, we have a company we started. It's called JDB Consulting. So we're like LLC, which is the OO in our region. We're a limited liability company. So what we do is we have to issue an invoice for all the money that comes in our account. Like what I meant when you're a contractor is that you can come and go as you please. So it's not like you sign a contract for 12 months or 6 months. So for example, I start with a new offer and I'm there for a week or 2 or 3 weeks and I see, okay, they lied about their numbers. There's no money to be made here. Off I go, right? So that's what I mean. Technically, you can work with multiple companies at once because you're not employed by one company only, right?
Yeah.
So nobody knows what you do in your space in the evening time. If you commit daytime to one company, you have hours, you can actually work for a different company as long as they're not colliding.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this topic of choosing an offer, finding a good offer, I spoke about this with Joel as well. And it seems like there isn't a blueprint or like a proven strategy that you always can use to find out whether an offer is good or not. In addition to a usual job, you need to do more vetting, because if you come into a company that is giving you a salary, even if it's a shitty company, you will still get a salary, hopefully, before they fire you. But like if you come on a shitty offer, since you're working on commission, you can get screwed. So what has been your experience with choosing offers? Do you have a way of finding good offers for yourself, or maybe Dushan has his own way? How do you find a good offer, and what are some characteristics of an offer? Like is there a marketplace for that, or do you go out and hunt for these? There's a business model like a marketplace for commission-based offers. What has been your experience? How do you find good offers?
Yeah, that's like $1 million question, because this is the biggest thing, of course, the quality of offers. So where do you put your time? Because like you said, we don't get paid anything. So I was in offers where they promised the world, right? And the lead gen was really good and the quality and all of that. I was there for a month and I made zero. They didn't have their processes dialed in. My calendar was empty and all of that. So I lost potentially 5 to 10K that month because I onboarded a shitty offer. Okay.
Yeah.
So the way that I handle that and the way that we actually learn to do that and navigate this kind of rapidly changing industry is that we use networking, which is something that our current mentor, JD Daly from UCM, taught us. Networking has been definitely one of the strongest, I would say, most effective systems of finding an offer so far, but also connecting with recruiters. For example, Joel placed me on my first ever offer after Declan. We had a conversation, and that was my first time that I had an interview with a recruiter. So that's also a great way because it's in their interest to place you into a good offer because you're going to stay there for a month and they get paid as well. Okay, so it's a win. So definitely connecting with recruiters and networking with other people. Now, when I say networking, it's not just about them recommending you for an offer and referring you, but it's also them giving you a heads up. Hey, that's a shitty offer. Don't go there because I've been there. And it actually saves you a lot of time. That happened to me a couple of times in the past where I commented on a post, hey, I'm interested in this, send me more information. And then a friend of mine is like, hey, I know actually Michael was there 2 months ago and they're very bad to work with. So it saves you a lot of time and energy as well.
I see. What you're saying is there isn't really a blueprint of finding like guaranteed good offers. It's more like a regular job hunt, like just figuring out what is the company paying, how good is the management, how good is the training, how good are their processes. But the equivalent for an offer would be, do they have their processes dialed in? Are they actually filling calendars for their closers or setters? So it's not really you show up and you make money. It's you got to put in the effort. You got to figure things out. You got to do your own homework and due diligence to make sure that you're not wasting your time, because the time that you're not spending selling is the time you're not making money. I can see how important it is to be able to land on a good offer. And speaking of offers, how can you talk about the offers that you're currently on? And is it just one or maybe a couple? Or I don't know how much you can share in regards to those clients, but what is Jelena selling these days?
Right now, I'm selling on 2 offers. So one is eczema healing. So it's for people 24 plus who are struggling with skin condition. And this is the first time ever in my life I'm selling a health offer. And I wanted to give it a shot. And yeah, I had 2 sales today. So yeah, it's a big day. Celebrations back to back. Yeah. It
That's
was cool,
impressive.
but it's very different as well. People are in physical pain. It's not something I'm used to selling. I was always selling marketing, branding, things like this, where I love marketing, social media, all of that. So I was selling there. And that's actually my second offer that I'm just starting with next week. I onboarded this week. It's all about getting booked onto a podcast with a purpose of driving more sales into your calendar and, of course, increasing the revenues for coaches and business owners who want to learn and be a speaker and increase their audience.
Okay. And you just mentioned you were onboarding for a week. What does that onboarding look like? Is it anything similar to a regular job or is it different? And what do you look for in the onboarding? I can assume during the onboarding process, you're assessing the offer itself and like checking whether are there any red flags and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm going to check in Slack channels to see who sold and how many sales they had last week. That's the first thing you do when they add you. Like, okay, let's see if they were lying. So onboarding means that they basically set up your you in the system, whether that's a CRM, you get your email. They train you on the actual offer, which is super important to know exactly what you're selling. They give you access to different resources. So all of the kind of techie part is set up. And you have access to some call replays that you can watch just to see their avatar. What does it look like? Because it's a completely different conversation I'm having on eczema offer where I'm totally emotionally, sometimes women even cry on the calls and it's very emotional. And then on the other side, you have business owners who are looking to drive more sales. So it's a completely different conversation. You need to get to know the avatar so you can adjust accordingly when you start taking calls.
I see. And from what you're saying, I know what I would prefer. It would be business owners. Like I wouldn't feel bad selling them anything. That's insightful, actually, because you can actually see right off the bat whether they were lying or whether there's any red flags. And how does a company protect itself from a bad closer? because the company, if the closer is bad, they're wasting money, or rather, they're wasting money by wasting time. Are there any guardrails for companies to protect themselves from bad closers? And then on the other hand, what do you do if there's no training? Do you even accept an offer like that? What happens when there's a founder, he figured out a way to generate some leads, he doesn't know the quality, and he just needs somebody to close?
So the first one was, how does a company protect themselves from a bad closer, which is so
Yeah.
important because you get closers who are burning through the leads, and they might be
Yeah.
even good leads, right? But they're just, and some companies are willing to let you do that. Like I was on with a company from Dubai. It was like personal branding and marketing and all of that. And they actually allowed me to burn through the leads in order to learn their process, which was very great. I was grateful for that. So that's when I did the hybrid for the first time ever. So some companies, if they
Mhm.
see potential in you, they're going to let you do whatever it takes to learn the process, which is awesome. But
Yeah.
basically, the way that they vet you is that you do role plays with them, right? Before you even get the gig or the job, you have to either send them your sales calls recording, you have one or multiple interviews. I'm currently applying for a client success manager position, and I had 3 interviews so far. I'm going to have 2 more. So it's a bunch of interviews. They really want to make sure I'm the right fit. So that's how they make sure that you're not going to burn through the leads, your experience, and all of that. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, of course, of course. I was expecting an answer like that, but it seems like it goes both ways. Meaning, you know, you as a closer, as a resource looking for a source of leads to sell, you have to be careful. Are you going to get yourself into a shitty situation? On the other hand, companies are always on the lookout for good people, and they want to make sure that they don't get screwed.
So
You're currently onboarding for an offer to sell something to business owners, and it's a high ticket offer. How do you get those leads? Is the company doing some kind of ads and then promoting through a landing page, a VSL, something, and then people sign up to a paid lead magnet or something, which then funnels back to you or the setter for a triage call? Is that kind of how the process works?
yeah, this is a must ask question if you're on an interview as a closer because they
Uh-huh.
do all the lead gen. So you as a closer have nothing to do with it. So one of the first questions I would ask is, what is your source of leads? How many lead sources do you have? Because if a company is relying on only one source, steer away, right? Because you never know what's going to happen. So basically, some of them do paid ads, some of them do affiliate marketing. So their affiliates actually send leads to us. Some of them have a freebie that you comment on Instagram and then you're in our email base and then we do email marketing. Some of them have like outbound setters or DM setters. So there's so many different ways that they can find leads to put into our calendar. But yeah, there's also the
Right.
VSL, the video sales letter that you can see on the next page, like a little webinar, evergreen webinars. There's a gazillion ways to find a lead.
Exactly. And you as a closer, what do you even do with a company that doesn't seem to have their processes dialed in? Is that a red flag? Do you skip on that offer, or do you try and figure things out? I guess it comes down to communicating with the founder, with the person doing the hiring. How do you look at that?
So there's a couple of different ways you assess those companies. You can look for a company where you can really make good money, but they don't have much training or support, right? And then you have other companies where your income potential is low, but the training is really good. I don't know if you heard of Jeremy Miner and Seventh Level. They're quite
Yeah.
big. And at one stage, I was actually interviewed and I was offered a position. However, I turned it down because I consulted my mentor at the time. And he told me, look, the income potential is not maybe as high, but you can learn a ton. However, I was already a little bit more experienced and I didn't have time to waste on onboarding on an offer just to get free training from Jeremy or Matt Ryder or whoever was there. It depends where you're at in your sales journey and what are you looking for specifically. Sometimes it's going to be much more beneficial for you to onboard with a company that has really good sales trainers respected in the industry and you get trained by them. And then afterwards, you can actually put that in your CV and use it as a reference. Hey, I was actually coached by Jeremy Miner himself or Matt Ryder or Sean Ray, right? And then move on to a better opportunity. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't mind if they don't have a sales training or any kind of training because I invest in trainings outside of my companies I'm selling for, right? Sometimes, like the eczema offer that I'm on right now, we have a sales manager and we do call reviews every single day, which I'm not a huge fan of. And I did tell her that today. I'm like, I would rather take more sales calls and sell and make money for you and me than spend an hour reviewing our calls every day. But sometimes it's very beneficial, especially for new people. There should be a good balance of both.
Yeah, it's an amazing answer. This reminds me actually of some practices that I've had in my previous roles as an SDR and an account executive, which are the equivalents to appointment setter and closer in the different market, which is the B2B software sales. We used to have call reviews with our managers
Mm.
where we'd listen to the calls together and then get real-time feedback on, oh, you talked too much, you could have said this, you could have said that, which is actually what I'm doing with my own SDRs that I'm hiring for my clients. I'm going through their call scripts and I'm going through their deliveries of those scripts to make sure they're actually saying the right things, coaching them back. So it seems like it goes in circles. It's more or less the same thing, but it's just a different packaging. There's a lot of similarities between these two types of roles, although this tech sales side of things is leaning more towards being comped better on a base salary, but I think you're getting capped on the commission side. You can't make a month, or at least there's a very limited amount of people who can make that kind of money, but it's a totally different world. Now, I am actually really curious, what are some of the character traits, or like, is it hard to become a setter? Is it hard to become a closer? How do you break into that world? Right? Does somebody have to have any sales experience in order to become a closer? Or do they just have to follow a script? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. You don't have to follow a script. It really depends what are you looking for. Sometimes people prefer to follow a script and they don't want to really use their brain a lot. And they're like DM setting, for example, it's a great example. I did DM setting. I love that because it's very flexible. I was on my phone and all of that, right? I could be with my family and sometimes outside. I just do 5-10 minutes reply to messages, right? So it's not too demanding, but there has to be a certain level of understanding of a sales process. And what do you need to find in that conversation to understand that the person is a good fit for the sale? So, how to qualify them? Because if you book shitty leads into my calendar as a closer, I don't make any money, you're not making any money, company's frustrated, you need to review your process, right? So you need to have certain level of understanding. There's a lot of those scams where they're like, oh, you go through our course and we guarantee placement. So if you ever see a coach or a company guaranteeing placement or job placement in exchange for a fee, it's a scam. I don't want to drop names, but if you Google, you're going to find them. The problem is that they're going to place you in some crappy offers. So technically, you are placed and they honored their deal. But the fact that you're not going to make any money ever, they don't care about that. So steer away from that.
Yeah.
And I would say there's a ton of free communities, both for setters and closers, where you can get a lot of knowledge, a lot of value, and get started that way. Start branding yourself and putting the word out there that, hey, I am a closer, I am a setter. And stop thinking about yourself as a newbie, as a beginner. Nobody wants to hear that. And you're just tripping yourself over that. Okay. That does not matter. What matters is how willing are you to put in the work to move from that point zero and square one, right? So stop talking about, oh, I'm just new in the industry, I know nothing, right? Forget about that. Act as if you already have some experience because that's how you're going to get to network with people.
I like it. And you keep mentioning networking. It seems like that's the key to finding good offers, the key to finding great recommendations, to being the one getting recommended, etc. What I can hear, let me recap real quick. It's basically stay away from something that sounds too good to be true, because it most often is. And then don't really shoot yourself in the leg by playing yourself down or doubting yourself or whatever. You basically try, are you saying brand yourself as somebody who knows what they're doing? What happens if you really don't know what you're doing? Because there's a lot of people in the audience who haven't done any sales or they don't know. How do they start? Where do they start from?
Yeah, so basically you have to sometimes fake it till you make it, because once you get started with the offer, you will probably get some support. Of course, you want to shoot for the offers that are open to beginners, right? What I'm saying is don't lie that you have 5 years of experience, because eventually they're going to notice you don't, right? So what I'm saying is, yes, mention that you don't have a ton of experience, but the key here is to find transferable skills, whether that's from real life or the stuff that you did online. For example, I worked in a jeweler's shop in Ireland. So that's some skills, some sales experience. I was selling diamonds, like high ticket items, 1K plus, right? Diamonds up to 25,000 euros. I never had sales experience selling coaching programs, but I know how to talk to people and I had some level of understanding. So it's same for everybody. Like you probably have some transferable skills that you can bring from your past, from your uni or whatever that might be. So try to emphasize your strengths. The most important thing is to nail the interview, because you're selling yourself on that interview and they will be willing to give you a chance if they recognize. Plus, one last thing I want to mention that's super important. Some companies actually want newbies without experience because they train you. Sometimes it's harder to change your old ways of selling because who you are, it almost comes out automatically. I've been there because you're so used to it. So some companies, they don't like that. They like a clean slate, so they train you on their ways.
I love that. You mentioned transferable skills. I've had so many conversations with candidates trying to break into the SDR role, which is it's very similar. It's I gotta convince the hiring manager, whoever that might be, that even though I don't have SaaS experience or I don't have necessarily experience selling whatever the company's selling, that I can actually do the job. And so I often tell people, hey, you worked as a cashier, amazing. Emphasize that. You can handle people. You can work under stress. You can work really quickly. You can think on your feet, whatever. Give examples, figure out examples. Now, the only problem I see people have is they don't have those skills. They don't have those assets. They don't think quick on their feet. I think that cohort of people just falls off naturally simply because they need to be doing something else. If they don't have those skills embedded in them naturally, it's most often that they won't really find themselves in sales. What has been your experience? Have you ever hired people or have you only been on the end where you are getting hired?
Yeah, I also hired people, but it's okay. Sales is not for everybody, and that's all right. Don't be too
Yeah.
hard on yourself. Sometimes people don't even enjoy sales, but they're here just because they heard there's a lot of money to be made. So if this
Yeah.
is you, please give up right now, because you'll never be a good enough salesperson, because you're always going to have the sale at the back of your mind. And people on the other side of your Zoom call or whatever, Google Meet, they feel that energy. So if you're here just to make money, get out of this, right? But if you're open and willing to learning, you're coachable, then yes, do everything in your power to get the skills. Did I ever hire anyone? I actually recommended a lot of people. I did bring a couple of people on the team where I was, just because I put in a good word for them, right, to recruiters and so on. But then I can recommend you all day long. You're still going to have that one-to-one call with the recruiter or the person who's in charge. So it's up to you to bring your A game and actually show that, yes, I'm good enough to be on your team.
I love that. Amazing. So, what's in store for you going forward? What do you want to achieve in your career? Obviously, you have been in this sales space for quite some time. You've sold jewelry. You've changed your careers and reinvented yourself more than a few times. What's next? You mentioned the customer success manager role. What the future holds for you?
Yeah, like Dushan, he genuinely loves sales, and so do I. But if I were to choose, I definitely love coaching people more than actually selling on a sales call. We do have extensive experience of coaching masterminds of business owners and coaching our academy clients from 3 years ago with Declan. We did that also apart from taking calls for him. So I definitely see myself a lot more coaching role in marketing specifically. So I do have my own digital marketing agency where I do social media management, branding for closers, for setters. I'm also starting my own mastermind in a couple of days. So if you are a closer or setter looking to ramp up your game and be more visible and really start liking social media for what it can help you with, instead of just comparing and feeling like you're not good enough, then definitely we're going to do a lot of mindset work, networking, branding, content creation, all in order to help you gain access to better opportunities online. So marketing is something I'm super passionate. I did that since I was 18, which was a long time ago. Always my calling. But yeah, I think I'll always stay in sales, even part-time, even like a couple of calls just to stay in the game.
I don't see a world where I'm not doing sales. But on the other hand, I think that every time we talk to somebody, every time we talk to an audience of any kind, for whatever reason, is sales. Because if we're not directly selling something, we're selling ourselves and our brand. And so I think it's impossible once you start doing sales. I don't think it's possible to stop. At least if you like it. If not, it's totally okay. There are other things. I always feel bad when I'm saying these things. It feels like I'm downplaying everything else that is in sales. I'm not. I know so many people who are just incredible marketers. I actually had a friend of mine on the podcast as well. He's an amazing agency owner. He has his own like consultancy, a marketing consultancy. He's just brutal. He's amazing. And he's made such great results for the companies that he worked in and now his clients. And he's not a sales guy. I don't want the audience to feel like I'm downplaying everything else that isn't sales. But from my perspective, and I can see that being from yours as well, it seems whatever we do, it's sales. And that's okay. I enjoy it. I like it. I love it. And it seems like you do as well. One last question, and I'm going to let you go. What is a message that you would send to the audience, to somebody who's considering should they become a setter or a closer? What would be your message to them?
I think that's one of the best things you can do for yourself financially if you live on Balkans. Because the money you can make here and the amount of effort you're going to put in is ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. You can live very comfortably with 2K here in Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, right? And you are going to learn the skills that nobody can take away from you. Like you said, communication, psychology, connections. You're going to meet incredible people. You're going to have so many business ideas. So if you are even remotely interested, don't be put off by having to learn a new skill. Don't let that stop you from coming into this industry because it's an incredible world. So if you're thinking about it, take a blank sheet of paper and write down the steps, and also why do you want to do it? Because that's going to be your biggest drive.
That. And since you mentioned those steps, what would be those steps? What would somebody have to do to get from zero to setter or closer?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The first thing is be visible, because you cannot find opportunity and opportunity cannot find you if you're not visible. I speak from personal experience because networking changed my life and it opened so many doors for me. So definitely I would put myself out there on platforms, update my profiles, make sure my profile picture is clear. Don't look like a scammer, as simple as that. Just try to make yourself look as a trustworthy person so you can actually connect with people, join Facebook groups, communicate online, comment, add value, put yourself out there, and start possibly going through some free courses that are available as well in those communities.
Amazing. Amazing. Jelena, you've been so awesome. And I really appreciate you for sharing all of this. I hope that we inspired other people to go this route and try themselves as setters or closers and try to make more money for themselves and their families. If not, it's also cool because we got a chance to chat and share a little bit of your expertise. And obviously there's a mastermind coming. So obviously that's something that we can promote as well. And so I'm just glad that we got a chance to meet, got a chance to chat and to learn from each other. So I really appreciate you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for the invite.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
For sure.